Hello everybody. This demo is going to show you how to make your very own face mask using plaster bandages. There are many different things that you can do with this process, and so I'm primarily in this video just going to focus on how to make the mask, but I will have other videos that show you some of the different ways that you can use this mask for other types of purposes. So let's get started by talking about the materials that you'll need to get started. First thing that will be really important is to pick a spot to work where if you get a little bit of mess, it's not the end of the world. But in addition to that, you will want some plastic to put down underneath you. So plastic on the table surface, and even maybe plastic below underneath where you're standing, because lots of drips will happen. You might even want to wear some old clothing because you might get plaster on that, or maybe even cut a hole in a trash bag and slip that over your head so that you're really protected. The other thing you'll need are the actual plaster bandages. So for this demo, I'm using these bandages right here that are pre-packed in a roll of 5 yards. There's plenty of bandages here to make one mask with. If you're going to be doing a lot of casting, you might want to consider purchasing larger volume of the plaster bandages. Make sure that you're always buying the right product for the purpose. There are some materials that would not be good to put directly on your skin. So just always read the instructions and make sure you're using the right material. What else do we have here? I'm going to be doing this process to myself. Some of you might not have an assistant who can help do the bandages for you. It's best if you have an assistant, but I will be doing it solo. So I'll show you the kind of ways to safely approach making a mask by yourself. But a mirror is going to be very important for that. I have saran wrap, or this is even like plastic packaging, plastic for wrapping your hair. And you also could use a shower cap or a swimming cap if you had something like that. But if not, plastic wrap will be ideal. A scissors, we're going to need to cut up the bandages, so a scissors will be important. You'll need a bucket to fill with water for the bandages. You will need some kind of tape to help keep the plastic on, and masking tape will work if you're just taping the plastic to itself. If you need to tape the plastic to your skin, think about getting some kind of surgical tape. So I just had this surgical tape. And then three other things, some paper towels, and then the two sort of most important things to not forget is Vaseline or some kind of cold cream. You will need to put this on your face before you put the bandages on, and you will need to apply that pretty liberally onto your face. Otherwise, the bandages are going to have a really hard time coming off. You'll want to apply it really liberally over your eyebrows, or it might pull them out. And if you have a beard or a mustache, I recommend shaving. If you can't do that, you just want to load it up with tons of Vaseline and sort of shape it so it's a little more condensed. I've had students with pretty full beards make plaster masks. They lost a few hairs, but not anything too extreme if they were really good about the Vaseline. So do not forget this step, super important. And then finally, just as a sort of added safety precaution, especially if you're working by yourself or you're working late at night, is some safety protection in the form of eye wash. We're putting plaster on our faces, and it's possible that we could get plaster in our eyes. Now, plaster is not a toxic material, but it will scratch and sort of burn your eyes. So if you get it in your eyes, what you'll want to do is be able to rinse it out. So at the very least, you should just have a cup that you can put some water in that you can use to rinse your eye. I have some saline that I just have, and so I'll keep that handy to know that if I also need to do a little rinsing, I can use saline. Even better than this big cup, you can buy these little eye cups, and you can even buy these sterile eye washing solutions. So not a bad idea if you kind of have your own home studio to just make sure that you have some emergency supplies for taking care of that. That being said, I will show you a technique in which you're putting plastic over your eyes at a certain point so that you're not applying the plaster directly over it. So you should not need this, but it's always good just to be prepared. So I am going to get out of my demo shirt into a work shirt and clear off this area and then get started. So I'll see you back here in a second. All right, everybody, I am setting a timer so that you can keep track of the amount of time that is passing in this video since it is sped up. It will take about an hour from start to finish. The first step is covering your hair. So here I'm just using saran wrap and some tape. Getting my hair tucked underneath. And then I'm going to use the Vaseline. You want to apply this liberally all over your face. Don't skip any parts. In your nostrils, eyelids, under your chin, in your hairline. Get those eyebrows really good. If you have a beard, glob it up. Okay, so I feel good about my Vaseline, and now I'm going to start using my plaster bandages. I like to cut them in a stack just to be more efficient. First strip maybe 2 finger widths wide, and I cut a pretty big stack of those. I like to have a pile of sort of small, medium, and a couple larger bandages to use at the end. I also want to have a couple longer, skinnier strips, which I'm going to make now. Those I'm going to use right away to make a ring around, or like an oval shape around my head that will serve as the edge of the mold. And when I apply those, I will be folding them in half to prevent them from fraying. So I have my water bucket and it is filled with warm water. You don't want cold water, that won't feel good, and also it will make the bandages take forever to dry. Plaster is affected by the temperature of the water. Cold water slows it down, hot water speeds it up. So we're just looking for something that's about 70 degrees room temp. So again, I have those narrow strips and I'm folding them in half so that the outer edge is not loose gauze, but a nice tight edge. And as I apply each layer, I'm smoothing it into my skin, really rubbing it in there to get the plaster through the gauze. I start from the bottom of my chin and work my way up. I'll start covering my mouth here in a second. I did, for this demo, leave a little opening for the mouth so I could continue to breathe. But you could, if you felt comfortable, you could seal up your mouth right away. We never cover our nose holes. Those are always left open. And so that is really your main source of air. So I've slowed it down a little bit just so you can see how when I get to my nose and my eye area, I'm really careful. I don't want to get the bandages in my eye, and I don't want to get them blocking my nose. So just go slow and steady. And that action of rubbing the bandages into your skin is helping so that the plaster is stronger, but also so it is picking up a little more detail. And then I take a small strip and I fold it and I go right under the bridge of my nose. It went over my mouth, so I just flipped up that little extra bit, kind of sculpting that into place. and it's looking pretty good. All right. So we want about 2, but 3 layers is even better all over the mask. Again, careful above my eye, and also as I start to put bandages above, I'm trying not to drip. We're not going to cover our eye holes right away, and so it might even be a good idea just to keep your eyes closed if you can. Maybe someone else is doing this mask for you, so it might be good just to keep your eyes closed as an extra precaution. Every once in a while you can see I'm actually grabbing my scissors too to cut some extra bandages. I might have needed some extra size strips. And I'm getting close to being done. I'm going to seal up my mouth eventually, but again, I always keep my eyes open and my nose clear. These extra pieces I'm adding are larger for that sort of final layer. We're assuming that the first layer's really got all the contours of my face and all the details that were necessary. So a few final extra pieces, but at this point I'm nearly done, and you can see about 30 minutes has passed from when I first started this whole process. So I'm going to let this set for about 5 or 10 minutes, and now I am making some extremely silly faces underneath this mask to help it loosen. So I'm smiling really big, I'm wiggling my jaw around, I'm kind of just moving my facial muscles as much as I can to try to help loosen and release it. I do have this video sped up just a little bit, but not too much, to show you that it's going to take a little bit of work to get it pried off, but hopefully you got enough Vaseline on that you will be able to get it loosened in order to come off. You might want to keep your eyes closed as well for this process, just to make sure that you don't get any plaster that sort of falls in as you're removing the mask. But I'm very close, and this has taken a couple minutes for it to release. So don't panic. Slow and steady is what is going to get the mask off. So I do have some plaster on my skin, and I just have a paper towel and I'm wiping it away. Because I have that layer of Vaseline, it's wiping off really easy. Okay, so now we have the mask, but the eyes and the nose are still open. So next, let's cover the eyes. And because I still want a recognizable mold, I'm taking a piece of saran wrap and I'm putting it just over my eyes. It looks weird and it feels weird, but that will allow you to slide the mask back on. You can still breathe through the nose holes. And now I am putting more bandages over the eye holes. And because I'm doing this by myself, I was careful to rehearse and make sure I knew where the bandages were and where my water bucket was. So we'll cover both sides, and then we're going to let that stiffen up for a little bit. You can see now it's been about 50 minutes from start to finish. Dance break. So we'll just wait a couple minutes for those eyes to set, and then you can take everything off. And you are now ready to plug the nose. So I just have a couple small bandages, and I am putting those on the outside of the mask, but then I also reach around to the inside to make sure that they are smooth in their transition to the inside nostril. And I'm also careful to not get plaster or drippy stuff on the inside of the mold. I did notice I had a couple stray bandage pieces along the edge, and I'm cutting them. I actually would wait to cut them until maybe a little bit, 20 minutes, so it's a little bit stiffer, and the plaster has set a little bit more. It cracked a little on me, but then I took a bandage, you can see, and I reinforced it. And your mask is complete. Okay, everybody, last little bit for this video. Let's talk cleanup. Cleanup is really important when we are working with plaster. Plaster is a material that should never, ever go down your sink drain. So this is why when I was cleaning up after I took off my mask, I was using paper towels and I was sort of pulling out as much of the gunk as I could before I went to my bathroom to actually sort of wash off my face and get rid of whatever was left in my hair. But I had wiped off most of it and pulled off whatever I could. So don't get it down your sink drains. Plaster is not water soluble, which means that it doesn't dissolve in water. So it's not like rinsing more water through is going to make the plaster go away. Plaster builds up on your pipes and eventually, actually instead of going that way, it encloses them. So be very mindful of that. So that means that the water that you used for rinsing your hands and your tools and your plaster bandages should not just be simply poured down your drain. But you can easily mitigate that by leaving it set overnight and letting the plaster settle to the bottom, and then you'll have clear water on top. And I actually won't have a lot of plaster sediment on the bottom of the bucket from the use that I did for that demo, but it will still be important to pour off the water. So the water, once it settles, it can just go outside. Plaster is not toxic, and so you could pour it in a grassy area until you start to see the sediment of the plaster. And once you see that, stop pouring off the water and then take a newspaper or paper towels and wipe out that remaining gunk and throw that away. And then rinse or wipe the bucket out really good with your newspaper or your paper towels before you go ahead and rinse it in your sink. So keep all those things in mind. The other thing to know is that if plaster gets on metal or on tools, you want to get that off as soon as you can, because when plaster dries, it will rust your tools. So I'm going to rinse off my scissors just using my rinse water, and then maybe once under clean water after that, but I'm going to want to clean this up. And last thing is I have this plastic drop cloth, and I'm always trying to conserve whenever I can. And I forgot that one of the things I like to do in order to reuse my plastic drop cloth is to lay newspaper on top of the plastic. So that way I can just crumple up the newspaper and recycle that. And then I can reuse the plastic again much more easily without as much cleanup. But I still can reuse this plastic. So I'm actually just going to leave this tomorrow when I come back to take care of my bucket. The plaster will have dried, and then it will, once I fold up the plastic, it will kind of crumble in, and then I can toss that, and then I can do a wipe of my plastic. And then if I need like it clean and not crusty, I can fold it inside of itself and then sort of reuse that. So I try to not use a bunch of waste but and plastic, but it is sort of really important for plaster because it makes a big mess. So those are ways that you can reuse it though, so it's useful multiple times. So and then your mask, you should leave this set just in a room temperature in your house. If we need the process sped up a little bit, you might put some heat on it, but in a couple days this should be ready to be utilized, but it's going to feel pretty damp for a couple days. So have fun, and I can't wait to see what you make.